All right, guys. So this is the extra credit for the final exam. Okay. I counted up, and there are, I need to recount. If you do like half of it, then I'll give you 5 points of extra credit. And if you do all of it, then I'll give you 10 points. Okay. And some of these you don't have to do because you haven't learned them. Okay. So here's number 1. What I would do is I would go through and do the ones that you think you struggle with and just do half of them or all of them if you want, whatever. Okay, so step 1, get the absolute value alone. 2 comes over and becomes a negative. The next step is to make the inequality an equal sign. The next step is to split it into 2. And the 3x minus 5 could be 7 or negative 7. Move the 5 over. 3x equals 12. Divide by 3. X equals 4. Come over here. 3x equals 5 comes over and becomes a positive negative 2. And you have x equals a negative 2/3. Now, you're not done because the original problem was an inequality. So the negative 2/3 is here. The positive 4 is there. There's no equal sign, so it's going to be open. On this problem, you do not have to test regions. It's an absolute value with an inequality. Greater than always means outside. Remember, that's far away from the center. Greater than is far away. So if you wrote your answer, it does say interval notation. So that'd be negative infinity to a negative 2/3 with a parenthesis. Please remember that the u is very important, and it goes 4 to infinity. Everything's closed with a parenthesis. Okay? Question 2a. Actually, on all of 2, I'm going to write down what these things are equal to, so I don't have to keep doing it over and over. So this is for A through C. Okay? So on part A, they're asking you to find f minus g of x. Well, that means take f of x and subtract g of x. So here is your f of x. I'm going to subtract your g of x. Now, that's not simplified, so you need to keep going. So common denominator, just put those together. So this fraction right here has the x. It's missing the x plus 2, so I have to multiply. So if I want a FOIL, it's 2x to the second plus 4x minus 1x is plus 3x minus 2. This fraction right here has the x plus 2. It's missing the x. So a negative 3x times x is a negative 3x squared. And then you simplify the top and you get negative x squared plus 3x minus 2 all over x times x plus 2. Okay, now I think the top actually factors. If I take out a negative, then it's going to look like that. And it does factor. You know what though? Factoring it isn't going to do me any good because look, x and x, both negatives, 2 and 1, and nothing cancels. So I was kind of thinking this might be an x plus 2 and that might be an x plus 2. If it was, you could cancel, but it's not. So it literally doesn't do you any good to factor because nothing cancels. So I'm going to leave it, and there's my answer. Okay. Part B is asking you to take f of x and divide it by g of x. So your f of x is 2x minus 1 over x. That's divided by 3x over x plus 2. So I'm going to write that as 2x minus 1 over x divided by 3x over x plus 2. One mistake that people make is they'll cancel their x's right now, but this is a division problem, so you cannot do that. So you make it a multiplication and flip it, and then cancel if something cancels and it doesn't. So if they want this simplified, let's FOIL it. So it's 2x to the second plus 4x minus 1x is plus 3x minus 2 over 3x squared. And none of the x's cancel because this guy doesn't have an x. Hey, I didn't see that they were asking for domain. So back on part A, the domain is, they didn't say set notation, so I actually won't. From the denominator, x cannot be 0 and x cannot be -2. Please don't write it like this. X cannot be 0, -2. They don't like that. This one right here, if you look at the answer, the domain restriction is x can't be 0. But you have to look throughout the whole problem. And do you see right in these places that I'm highlighting, the x plus 2 was also in the denominator. So that also tells you that x cannot be -2. Okay. Part C, they're asking you to find f of g of x. So take that g of x and replace it with what g of x is. Now go into this f of x right here, and this x and this x gets replaced with 3x over x plus 2. So go to 3x over x plus 2 minus 1 over 3x over x plus 2. Okay, so people get confused how to multiply that. So the 2 does not get multiplied by the x plus 2 because that's 2 over 1. So the tops get multiplied together. That would be 6x. The bottoms get multiplied together. 1 times x plus 2 is x plus 2. Then I'm just going to keep writing everything down the way it is. So the top needs a common denominator, which is going to be x plus 2. This guy right here has the x plus 2, so I'm going to write down the 6x. This guy right here does not have the x plus 2, so I have to multiply top and bottom by x plus 2. I distribute the negative, and I get negative x minus 2. Make sure that you change that to a minus, not a plus. And that's all over 3x over x plus 2. So on the top, I have 5x minus 2 over x plus 2. Changing the division bar into a division symbol, that's 3x over x plus 2. Now I'm going to change my division to a multiplication. I'm going to flip the second fraction upside down. One big mistake that people make right here is that they don't cancel things. But you have a 3x plus 2 on the top and 1 on the bottom. So on the top you have 5x minus 2, and on the bottom you have a 3x. Okay. Domain on this one. Whenever you're doing all these, function notation, f of x, g of x, and they're asking you domain, just make sure you look throughout the entire problem. And once again, x cannot be 0 because of these, and x cannot be equal to -2 because you have x plus 2 on the bottom. Okay? All right, question number 3. So step number 1 is to get your absolute value alone. So I'm going to move my -2 over. So I have a negative times 3x minus 4 is equal to the -2 comes over and becomes a positive. So you have a -8. Now this negative can't be there. So I'm going to change both the signs. So now it's a +8. And now I'm going to split it into 2 and drop the absolute value symbols. Solve this one, bring your 4 over, 3x equals 12, divide by 3, x equals 4. Pull this one over, 4 becomes a positive, so that's a -4, and I get x equals -4/3. And right here you're done because it was given as an equal sign and not an inequality. Okay, so that's it. Okay, question number 4. This one's going to be different because it's given as an inequality and not an equals. So step 1, get it alone. So move the 2 over. So negative absolute value of 8 minus 2x is greater than or equal to +2. Change your signs, and you have absolute value of 8 minus 2x is less than or equal to, because I'm dividing by a negative, and you get a -2. Okay, so this is very unusual. I don't think you're going to get this on your test, but if you think about this, an absolute value is always positive. It's either 0 or it's positive, but it's never negative. So they're saying, when is an absolute value less than a negative number? Well, an absolute value is never less than a negative number. So this is no solution, and you're done, okay? Don't worry a ton about that. Just understand it and, move on. Okay, so here's question 5. So here's the equation. Okay, so part A, they're asking you to find f of -2. So you have to look at equation 1 and equation 2, and you have to figure out, is it less than a -1 or greater than or equal to a -1? Well, -2 is less than -1, so I'm using equation 1. So you have to show 2 times -2 minus 1. That's -2 minus 1, which is -5. Part B, f of -1. It's equal to -1, so it's part 2, or equation 2. Now you have to be careful with this. So you put a negative. Then in parentheses you put what x is, which is a -1, and it's squared. A -1 squared is a 1, but you've got that negative sitting in front of it. Okay, question C. Find f of 0. 0 is bigger than a -1, so it's a -0 squared, and that's just 0. Don't write your answer as an ordered pair. It's just a value, just like I'm writing. F of 2, 2 is greater than -1, so it's -2 squared. 2 squared is 4. There's a negative out in front, and that's it. Okay, question 6. Oh, sorry, back to the graph. I was supposed to graph this thing. Okay, so it's going to be kind of yucky because I'm just going to hand graph this. On your midterm, make sure you have graph paper for your graphs, okay, so they're nice. Okay, so the first one that we're graphing is y equals 2x minus 1. So that's just a line shifted down 1, and then the slope is 2 over 1. So up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1, down 2, left 1, down 2, left 1. So sorry, it doesn't look so great, but looks about like that. And that graph is only supposed to be there if x is less than -1. So here's -1, less than is that way. So I'm going to get rid of everything that's greater than a -1. And then I have to fix my lovely graph. There is no equal sign. So on the end of that, it's going to be an open circle. Okay. -x squared is just a parabola that opens down. So I'll graph this in red, pencil at the origin, right 1 down 1, left 1 down 1. Right 2 down 4, left 2 down 4, curves like that. I do have an equal sign, so that circle's going to be closed. Okay. All right, that was number 5. Here's number 6. A submarine under the water launches a torpedo that follows the given graph. How many feet from the sub does the torpedo leave the water? So if you look at the graph, right there, curves like that, right? This is where it's leaving the water. And if you look, that's a value of 50. So part A, the answer is 50, and this is feet. Okay, part B, how many feet does it reach its greatest height? So there's the greatest height. If you look down, that would be 200. That's how far away it is. So that's 200 feet. And then C, how far from the submarine does it hit the water? That would be right there, and that is 350. So this is just like an interpreting a graph problem, okay? Question 7. Here's your equation. Okay, so you can do this 2 different ways. You can complete the square, or you can do -b over 2a. I think -b over 2a is easier. So I'm going to go -6 over 2 times 1. That's 6 over 2, which is a 3. So your vertex is 3 comma something. And now if I plug it in, 3 to the second minus 6 times 3 plus 3. That's 9 minus 18 plus 3. And that gives me -6. So there's my vertex, and that was one of the questions. Axis of symmetry is always x equals. and then it's the x-coordinate of the vertex, which is 3, and then the y-intercept I'm actually going to just get from the graph. So I'm going to go ahead and graph this. So 3, -6 is going to be down pretty low. So there is your vertex, and it has a normal stretch, right one up one, left one up one. Looks like this. And then the next one would be 2, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So look about like that. And then the next one would actually be 3, 9. And I'm going to do that because that's going to be my intercept. So it's going to be easier. So 3 would put me on the axis. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it would actually hit right there. Same thing over there. Curve it in. It'll be much nicer on your graph because you're going to have graph paper. But it looks about like that, okay? So the y-intercept is here, which is 0, 3, okay? All right, here is number 8. So number 8, I think that if this is on your final, that they're not going to actually have you find it. I think they're just going to ask you to set it up. So I'm going to set it up, and then I'll actually do it because that's what it's asking. But I just don't think that's going to happen. So f of x plus h means put x plus h there and x plus h there. So go minus parenthesis x plus h squared plus 2 times x plus h. That I just wrote is only that piece of it. Now you subtract the entire thing, and that's all over h. If it said setup, that would be your answer. Some of you on the setup, it said do not simplify like in the past, and you actually distributed the negative and wrote plus x squared minus 2x. You need to understand that that's simplified, and they said don't simplify it. So just make sure that you don't do that. Okay, so that is if they don't want you to simplify. I'm going to keep going. So x plus h squared, when I FOIL that, I get x to the second plus 2hx plus h squared. Distribute the 2, 2x plus 2h, distribute the negative, plus x squared minus 2x all over h, okay? Now I need to distribute the negative, so it's negative x squared minus 2hx minus x squared, h squared, plus 2x plus 2h plus x squared minus 2x all over h, okay? X squared minus x squared cancel. Plus 2x minus 2x cancel. So I have negative 2hx minus h squared plus 2h all over h. And then everything has an h. So I can take an h out of everything. I have minus 2x minus h plus 2 all over 1. And that's it. Okay? Okay, question 9. Is this even, odd, or neither? So some people were just like looking at exponents, and if the exponents even, say even. If it's odd, it say odd. That is not how you do that. So f of negative x, you're going to go cube root 2 minus 4 times negative x over negative x to the third minus 2 times negative x plus 1. Now that's not simplified, so you have to simplify it. So it's the cube root of 2, negative 4 times negative x is a plus 4x, over negative x to the third plus 2x plus 1, okay? What I'm comparing at this moment is the original to what I just found. And those are not the same. And so I have to keep going. I have to keep finding things. So the next thing I need to find is negative f of x. So people make this way, way, way too hard. So this right here, guys, it's a fraction. Just like half is a fraction. Well, if I were putting a negative in front of it, I would literally just put a negative on the top. That's literally all I have to do on this. So I'm going to go negative cube root 2 minus 4x over, I do not change the bottom. because that would be a negative over a negative, which is positive. So you just change the top. And I don't have to distribute anything because the top is a monomial and I can't distribute a negative into a root. So now I'm looking at those three things that I just checked and none of them are the same. So I'm going to say f of x is not equal to f of negative x, which is not equal to negative f of x. Therefore, the answer is neither. And I'm done. Okay? All right, question 10. A rocket is shot into the air from a 30-foot platform, and the flight path is given by this equation, where x is the time in seconds, and I would totally write that down, and f of x is the height, and that is going to be in feet. Okay, so question A, when will it reach its maximum height? This is a parabola that opens down, and the vertex is a maximum. So it's negative b over 2a. So it's negative 208 divided by 2 times negative 16. So some of you are putting this in the calculator wrong. 2 negatives is a positive, so forget about that. You have to go 208 divided by. If you just go 2 times 16 right now, that's wrong. You have to go parenthesis 2 times 16, close it off, enter, and you get 6.5. Now you have to stop and think about that. What does that stand for? That's the x. What is x? Seconds. Read the question. When will it be? So that's the answer. Seconds. So what happened on quiz 3, that was not the question on quiz 3. Quiz 3, it was, what is the maximum height? Well, maximum height, that means y. So then you have to plug that back in. So you have to show this work. Like this, okay? I think storing's so easy. So if you just go store, enter, then go negative 16, memvar, enter, x squared, plus 208, memvar, enter, plus 30, enter, I get 706. That's my y value, so my label is feet, okay? Question C, how far will the rocket be when it hits the ground? Well, guys, it's going to hit the ground right there on that picture, and that's when y is 0. So I'm going to go negative 16x to the second plus 208x plus 30 is equal to 0. I'm going to use the quadratic formula. Now, I would take out a 2, but it's telling me to round anyway, and so I can just stick the whole thing in the calculator, so I'm not going to reduce. So I'm going to go x equals negative b, that's negative 208, plus or minus the square root of 208 squared is 43,264, and I would write that number down, not 208 squared, minus 4 times a, which is negative 16, times c, which is 30, all over 2 times negative 16. So remember, when you put this in your calculator, you have to add parentheses there, and right there, remember, you have 3 close parentheses. Okay, so everybody go parenthesis, negative 208 plus second x squared, 43264, minus 4 parenthesis, negative 16, close it, new parenthesis, 30, close, 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 divided by parenthesis, 2 times negative 16, close it, enter, and I got x equals negative 0.14. Okay, now I'm going to go up, right, make that plus a minus, hit enter, and I get 13.14. You can't have a negative seconds, so I'm going to say this is an invalid solution, and I'm going to put right here seconds. Now the beautiful thing is, if you hit store, enter right now, and then you plug it back in there, so if you just go up, 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 till you're back on the equation, hit enter, I should get a 0. So this is what I got, and it's kind of strange. Negative 1, and then there's a little 10, negative 10 like that. So this is basically scientific notation. So it's negative 1 times 10 to the negative 10th which means take that and move it 10 places that way. So it'd be negative 0.9 zeros, like a ton of zeros, and then a 1. Long story short, the calculator's trying to say 0. So you got it right. Don't worry about that. Okay, question 11. Okay, so question A, what is the degree? So you go 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I were to multiply it all out, I'd have a 6. And behavior, even is parabola, and there's no negative, so it's going to open up, so it's left up, right up. To find the y-intercept, you're going to let x be a 0. So I'm going to go f of 0 is equal to 0 minus 2 times 0 plus 1 to the second times 0 minus 5 to the third, and that is going to be something really big, 250. Okay, like that. Question D, name the x-intercepts and describe what is happening at each point. That's just the bounce cross stuff. So y is a 0, this guy is 2, 0, exponent's 1, so it's going to cross. This guy right here, negative 1, 0, exponent's even, so it's going to bounce. The next one's 5, 0, odd, so it's going to cross. And then they want you to graph it. By the way, guys, some of you guys are messing up on the maximum number of turning points. Make sure you know how to do that. Super simple. So you just take the degree, which is 6, and subtract 1. So the maximum number of turning points on this graph, if they were to ask you, would be 5. Okay, so this is going to go 5, 0, and that's going to cross. Negative 1, 0 is going to bounce. 2, 0 is going to cross. The left is up, so it's going to up, hit it, bounce, come down, cross through, come over, cross through. I ended up, and it was supposed to be up. So this is supposed to be 250. Clearly, I didn't scale this correctly. So just to be careful, I would just label it 0, 250, and then you kind of cover your bases. Okay, number 12. Okay, so this is the rational function, which is vertical asymptote, horizontal asymptote, all that stuff. So step 1 is always to graph. So it goes to x and x. 12 is going to go to 3 and 4. Signs are different. Biggest is the positive. The bottom's going to factor to x plus 2 times x minus 2. Okay? So first thing is find the domain. Take the bottom, state that it can't be 0. So x can't be plus or minus 2 from that. To find the y-intercept, again, I'm going to let x be a 0. Definitely the easiest place to do that is up here. I'll call this equation 1, equation 2, just for communication purposes. Definitely equation 1 is the easiest because all those x's would go away. So you'd have a negative 12 over a negative 4, which is a positive 3. Okay, and then they're asking you for the x-intercept. The way you find the x-intercept is you let y be 0, which is the same as letting the top be a 0, which is definitely easier on equation 2. So that'd be negative 4, 0 crossing and 3, 0 crossing because those exponents are 1s. Vertical asymptote come from the bottom. Easier for sure with equation 2. So that's x equals negative 2 odd, x equals positive 2 odd. Horizontal asymptote is biggest over biggest is what you're going to check. Equation 1, x squared over x squared, that would be y equals 1. And then extra points, you only have to do that if necessary, and it's pretty rare that that would happen. Okay, so I always do my asymptotes first. So here is x equals 2, x equals negative 2, and there's y equals 1. Oh, I didn't decide if it crosses, which is actually pretty important. So you take the right side of the horizontal, set it equal to the right side of the original, and then you cross multiply. So when you cross multiply, you get x to the second minus 4 equals x to the second plus x minus 12. that x squared comes over and knocks that one out. This is actually going to cross. The 12 comes over and becomes a positive, and you get x equals 8. So yes, it does cross, and it's going to cross at the ordered pair 8 comma something. So now if I grab my calculator and go 8 store enter, and I'm plugging this guy in, and I'm putting parentheses around the top and the bottom. So I'm going to go parenthesis, memvar, enter, x squared, plus memvar, enter, minus 12, close it, divided by parenthesis, memvar, enter, x squared, minus 4, close it, enter, I get a 1. So that's super important. So if it crosses, and you don't show it crossing, then you're going to lose points. So we don't want that to happen. So right here, it's going to cross through. Okay. All right, let's keep going. So 0, 3 is the y-intercept right there. Okay, x-intercepts are 3, 0, crossing, negative 4, 0, crossing. So I just remembered you guys struggled with this concept on the midterm. This was not a great problem. So let's just make sure you know how to do this. So look at the far left. It's either going to look like this and come down and hit that point, or it's going to come like that and hit that point. Man, my graph wasn't great right there, but it's going to come like that and hit that point. Well, you know it's not the top one, because the top one just crossed the non-vertical, and the only way you can do that is clear over there. So it is not going up, it's going down. And my end behavior is that horizontal, so it looks like that. This asymptote right here is odd, so if I'm down over here, I've got to be up over here, and then I'm going to hit it, and then there's no way I swing down, because I'm hitting both the x-intercept and the non-vertical, or the x-axis I mean, and I can't do that. So instead of down, it's going to swing up. This asymptote over here is odd, so on the left if it's up, then on the right it's going to be down. It's going to cross through. Oh yeah, let me do that a little bit better. So this is going to be down, cross over, peek up a little bit, and then come back down. Okay, that was 12. Here is 13. Okay, so step 1, factor, and that's going to factor it to x plus 1 times x minus 1. And now let's look at what they want. So those are the two equations. Call this equation 1, equation 2. Domain from the bottom, x cannot be equal to plus or minus 1. The y-intercept, let x be a 0. I don't know how many of you guys know my son is James Violet from season 17 of The Voice, but he's underneath me recording music right now. So I think you can hear him, so I'm moving. That's funny. Okay, so he's echoing through my whole house. Okay, there's 13. Okay, so to find the y-intercept, let x be a 0. So if x was a 0 up here in equation 1, then you could see that y would also be 0. If 0, 0 is a y-intercept, then you know it's definitely going to be an x-intercept as well. To find the x-intercept, you let y be 0, which is the same as letting the top be a 0, so it's 0, 0. And because there could have been more, so I had to check. Vertical asymptotes come from the bottom. You have x equals 1 and x equals negative 1, and those are both odd. And then I don't like how it says horizontal, so I'm just going to say non-vertical because that's what they call it. So if you go biggest over biggest, here in equation 1, the bottom's bigger, so that would be y equals 0. Okay, and then if you graph it, you have an asymptote here that's odd. You have an asymptote here that's odd. And you have a non-vertical right there. And then 0, 0. So this one's tricky. the reason this one's tricky is because you have to test some more points. So basically, not to make this too complicated, but look at this graph right here. So up high, swing down. This is odd, so if that's up, that's going to be down. Swing cross through. This is odd, so if that's up, then that's going to be down. There's nothing wrong with that. There's also nothing wrong with this. Watch this black one. So it goes down low, come up, swing. This is down low, so this is up high. Go like that. That's down low, so this guy is up high. So you can't tell which one it is, but it's easy to figure it out. If you just put in, like I always just go over on this left side. So if you put in like a -2, then you go -2, store, enter. I'm going to put it right there, and I have to put parentheses right there. So I'm going to go memvar, enter, divide, parenthesis, memvar, enter, x squared minus 1, close it, enter. I get a negative number. So negative means it's below the x-axis. So I can see now that it's the black graph, and so it looks like that. Okay, that was 13. Here's 14. Okay, so sketch this on a number line and write it in interval form. Okay, so this is critical numbers type 1. So your critical numbers are x equals -3, +1, and +2. Okay, the signs are not going to alternate because you have an exponent that's bigger than 1, so you're going to have to test every region. So -3, +1, +2, closed circles like that. -4 would be over here to the left. So if I go -4, store, enter, and then I go parenthesis, memvar, enter, +3, close it, parenthesis, memvar, enter, -1, close it, x squared, parenthesis, memvar, enter, -2, close it, enter, I get a positive. I got a 150. So I'm going to put a plus. Now I can't just alternate. I have to go in and test it, which it takes like 2 seconds. So in the center, 0, store, enter, then go up, up, enter, and I got a negative. Between 1 and 2, 1.5, store, enter, up, up, enter, I got another negative. To the right, 3, store, enter, up, up, enter, I got a positive. So you see how those don't alternate, right? Now where do I shade? Less than means negative, so that would be here and here. So some people do this. They go -3 to 1, close with a bracket, union 1 to 2, close with a bracket. But the 1 close with a bracket means it includes the 1. So if it includes it, you don't even have to talk about it. You just say everything between a -3 and a +2. So you go -3, +2, close with a bracket, done. Okay, here's 15. Okay, list all of the possible zeros. So what goes into 6? 1, 2, 3, and 6. What goes into this leading coefficient, which is a 1? Just a 1. Dividing by 1 doesn't change anything, so I don't have to write it. And it's the plus or minus of each of those, okay? So make sure you put parentheses around it and make sure you put the plus or minus, okay? Now find all the rational zeros. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start plugging these in and finding some that work. So try a 1. So go 1, store, enter. Then go memvar, enter, raise it to the third. Minus memvar, enter, +6, enter. And I did not get a 0, so it didn't work. Now I'm going to go -1, store, enter, up, up, enter, did not get a 0. 2, store, enter, up, up, enter, did not get a 0. -2, store, enter, up, up, enter, and I got a 0. So I have one rational 0 at x equals -2, and there might be more. Okay, so now I'm going to do synthetic division with the negative 2. So the x to the third is a 1x to the third. There's no x squared. The x's coefficient's a negative 1, and then I have a 6. When I do this, I should not get a remainder. So the 1 comes down. 1 times negative 2 is a negative 2. 0 minus 2 is a negative 2, or 0 and a negative 2 is a negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. That gives me a 3. 3 times negative 2 is a negative 6, and I got no remainder. This was an x to the third, so this is a squared. So I have x to the second minus 2x plus 3 equals 0. And I can see that that's not going to factor. So part B is done. And then part C would be down here. Okay, so quadratic formula, x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared is 4. Minus 4 times 1 times 3 all over 2 times 1, which is a 2. Now grab your calculator and put that in. You're not allowed to answer in decimal form because they didn't give you permission. It didn't say. So go 4 minus 4 parenthesis 3, close it, enter, and I get a negative 8. I didn't put the 1 in because it doesn't change it. All over 2. Now 8 breaks down into 2 times 4 and 2 times 2. So these two 2's come out, and the negative comes out as an I. So I have x equals 2 plus or minus 2i square root of 2 all over 2. It's a square root of 2 because you have that 2 left over. Now if you look there, there, and there, 2 goes into everything, so you can reduce. So you have 1 plus or minus I square root of 2 all over 1, which doesn't change anything. Okay? All right, that was 15. So here's 16. So 16 is the same type of problem. Okay, so the possibles, what goes into 4, 1, and 2, and 4. What goes into 2, 1, and 2. You can't write it like that. So you go 1 over 1, 1. 1 over 2, 1 half. 2 over 1, 2. 2 over 2 is a 1. 4 over 1 is a 4. 4 over 2 is a 2. Put parentheses, put a plus or minus. Now, this is the issue I was having before. Look at that right there. If you leave that like that, I have no idea what you're saying. I don't know if you think this is the answer or this is the answer. So make sure you take the time to highlight that answer, okay? Now I'm going to start plugging those in. So I'm going to go 1 store, enter. 2 memvar, enter, raise it to the 4th. Minus memvar, enter, raise it to the 3rd. Plus 7 memvar, enter, x squared. Minus 4 memvar, enter, minus 4, enter, and I got a 0. So a 1 is a rational solution. So I'm going to go x equals 1. Now I'm going to do synthetic. Coefficients are 2, negative 1, 7, negative 4, negative 4. And when I do this, I should not get a remainder. So my 2 comes straight down. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 and negative 1 is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. 7 and 1 gives me 8. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 minus 4 is 4. 4 minus 1 is a 4, and I have no remainder. Okay, so this is a little tricky. Remember, does that factor? Well, you have 2x to the third plus x to the second plus 8x plus 4, and you're solving, so you have to go equals 0. So see this 2, 1? Look at the big one, 8, 4. If I took out a 4, my 8 would become a 2, and my 4 would become a 1. So 2, 1 matches that 2, 1, and that little trick tells you that it would factor. Okay, so I know it's going to factor, so I don't have to keep looking. So now when I factor this, it's going to go to a 2x and a plain x. Now, one of those has to be squared. I don't know which. Actually, let's do it this way. One has to be squared. One has to be to the first, and one of them has to have a 2 in front of it, but I don't know which one yet. So I'm going to figure that out in a second. See how I need a 1x squared? Whatever goes there is multiplied by the x squared, so that would be a plus 1. Therefore, I know the 2 is going to have to go there. As far as the x goes, I need a positive 8x. So that would be a plus 4. And then the last thing I do is I just make sure that this times this gives me 4, which it does, so I'm fine. 2x plus 1, when I solve that, I get x equals negative 1/2. That is another rational 0, so I have to list it up there. X squared plus 4 does not factor. So I'm done with rationals, and then I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to take that x squared plus 4, set it equal to 0, and those will be my other zeros. So I move the 4 over, and it becomes a negative, so x squared equals negative 4, square root it, and I get x equals plus or minus 2i, and those are my rationals, my others, okay? Okay, question 17, find all the zeros. So you just go x to the 4th plus 13x squared plus 36 equals 0. So this one's kind of tricky. So you factor it, and I know that x to the 4th looks bad, but it just goes to an x squared and an x squared. And then the 36 goes to a 9 and a 4, because it multiplies to give you 36 and adds to give you 13. And that's it. Neither one of those factors further. So go x squared plus 4 equals 0, or x squared plus 9 equals 0. This gives you x squared equals negative 4. Square root it. X equals plus or minus 2i. This one, x squared equals negative 9. Square root it. And that gives you plus or minus 3i. Let's just write that separately. I don't want you to miss things because of silly reasons, so let's do that. Okay, number 18, find the inverse. So this is y equals x to the 3rd minus 1. So I'm going to write it as x equals y to the 3rd plus 1, or minus 1. And then I'm going to solve it. So the 1 comes over and becomes a positive. So I have y to the 3rd equals x plus 1. And then I cube root, and I get f inverse of x equals the cube root of x plus 1. That's it. And they want the domain of and the range of both. So the domain of the original, the range of the original, domain of the inverse. I don't like the equal signs. I think that's confusing. So I'm going to do colons. And then the range of the inverse. So if you look right here, no restriction, I don't have any even root, no even root on the bottom, no fractions. So domain of the original is all real numbers, as well as the range of the inverse. Look right here, again, no restrictions. I do have a root, but it's an odd root. So the domain and range of everything is all real numbers, okay? Number 19, find the inverse of this. So I'm going to switch my x's and y's. Looks like that, and I'm going to solve for y. I can tell right now that I'm going to have to switch it to exponential form because the y is like embedded in the log. It's part of the log, okay? So I'm going to move my 1 over, and I get 3 log y equals x plus 1. Divide by 3. So I have log y equals x plus 1 over 3. And now I'm stuck, so I'm going to convert it. So it's at log base 10. So it's 10 to the x plus 1 over 3 is equal to y, which is your inverse. So it looks like that, okay? And that is a little more tricky than I think it needs to be. They're asking you also for the domain and the range of the inverse and the original. So if you look right there, the domain of the inverse, there are no restrictions as to what x can be. No even root, nothing like that. So this is all real numbers, all real numbers. And then over here, we're taking the log of y. You're taking the log of something, and that has to be greater than 0. The original problem was this. So it's actually the x we're looking at. Anyway, x has to be greater than 0. So I'm just going to say x has to be greater than 0. Therefore, their y has to be greater than 0. You can't take the log of 0, nor can you take the log of a negative. Okay? All right, question 20a. find the domain of each of these. So this one right here, 1/3 is a cube root, and there are no restrictions to a cube root, so the domain is everything. They don't tell you how to write it however you want. Question B, raising something to the 1/4 is the 4th root. So what you're taking the root of has to be greater than or equal to 0. So 2x has to be greater than or equal to 1. Therefore, x has to be greater than or equal to 1/2. Part C, now we have an even root on the bottom. So the bottom has to be greater than 0, the inside. So 2x minus 1 has to be greater than 0. 2x is greater than 1. X is greater than 1/2. Part D, remember we just talked about a second ago that you can't take the log of 0, nor can you take the log of a negative. So 2x minus 1 has to be greater than 0. So 2x has to be greater than 1, so x has to be greater than 1/2. Okay, there's 21. So on 21, if the negative is in the front, remember that's a reflection across the x-axis. If the answer was supposed to be y-axis, the negative would be within, so be careful with that, okay? 22, graph this and answer some questions, okay? So it says graph one adjustment at a time. You don't have to do that unless there's a reflection, okay? But I do always want you to graph the parent first, which is here. So exponential graphs have an asymptote right there. And they always hit 0, 1. And if I go right 1, I go up whatever that base is, okay? Now, I don't have any negatives, which means I don't have any reflections. The -3 tells me to go down 3. The +2 tells me to go left 2. So I'm going to take that graph and I'm going to go down 3. I always do my asymptote first so I don't get confused, okay? Okay, so now I'm going to go to the point 0, 1, which is here. I'm going to go down 3, 1, 2, 3, left 2. So that's where that point is. This point is 1, 4, which is here. So I'm going to go down 3, 1, 2, 3, left 2, 1, 2, curve it in, done. Okay, and then I'm going to look at that graph and answer the questions. So domain, start to the left, move to the right. This graph will cover the entire domain, so it's everything. Range is y, start low. The smallest is a -3. It does not hit it, so it's parenthesis, and it goes to infinity. And then the asymptote, that's a horizontal asymptote that hits the y-axis, so you have to go y equals -3. Okay, question 23. If something is odd, it's reflected across the origin. Yes, origin. O-R-I-G-I-N. It's origin. Even is reflected across the y-axis. Okay. Okay, 24. Okay, so first thing I want you to do is to graph the parent. Okay, a log graph has an asymptote that looks like an L. Hits right there at 1, 0. And then if I go right 4, because that's the base, I go up 1. Looks like that. I don't have any reflections because a negative here or a negative in front of the x would be a reflection. But I don't have that. The +1 tells me to go up 1. The +3 tells me to go left 3. So I'm just going to do those both in one step. So I always do my asymptote first. So I'm going to go left 3. There's my asymptote. Okay, so here I am at 1, 0. I'm going to go up 1, left 3, 1, 2, 3. There's my graph. Then I'm going to go to 4, 1, I'm going to go up 1 and left 3. So there's that point. Curves like that. There we go. Okay. And then they're asking for domain. That's x. Start at the left. That would be 3 to infinity. It's never going to touch the 3. So it's a parenthesis. Range, start low, move up. It's going to hit everything, all real numbers. Asymptote, it's going to be hitting the x-axis. So go x equals, and it hits it at a -3. Okay. Question 25. So this problem is weird because I cannot get my bases to be the same. Okay. So remember, when it's weird, you have to take the log of both sides. So it's going to be the log of 3 raised to the 2x minus 1. That 2x minus 1 is an exponent. The log is not, or the 3 is not down below. It's on the same level as the log. And this is the log of 4 raised to the x plus 2. Pull down your exponents. 2x minus 1 log 3 equals x plus 2 log 4. You guys, you have to have parentheses around those things in that line because you're distributing. So make sure you do that. So distribute, and you have 2x log 3 minus log 3 equals x log 4 plus 2 log 4. Everything that has an x on one side, so it's 2x log 3. This x goes to the left, and it's negative x log 4. This log 3 goes to the right, and it's log 3 plus 2 log 4. I'm trying to solve for x. I can't add these two logs together, so I'm going to factor out an x, and I'm left with 2 log 3 minus log 4 equals log 3 plus 2 log 4. To get the x alone, I have to divide by this guy right here. So it's log 3 plus 2 log 4 divided by 2 log 3 minus log 4. Okay, 26. 26 is not weird. The reason it's not weird is because I can write a 16 as a power of 2. You change the big number. So I'm changing the 16 to the 2, not the 2 to the 16. So 2 to the 4th is 16. I'm not raising both sides to the 4th. I'm just rewriting 16 in a different way. It's exactly 2 to the 4th. So this is 2 to the 7x minus 5 is 2 to the 4 times x is 4x. If 2 to this equals 2 to that, then those must be equal to each other. Move the 7x over, it becomes a negative. So you have negative 3x equals negative 5. Divide, x equals 5/3, and I'm done. If you wanted to store 5/3 in, and you could put it over here and then over here and make sure you get the same thing, you could check it. Just make sure you put parentheses around that exponent. Okay, 27. Multiple logs and a number that's not a 0. Okay, condense and convert. So you take those two logs, you squish them together, and when you squish them, they're going to be multiplied. So it looks like that. Now I convert it. So 2 to the 4th is equal to x plus 3 times x minus 3. Then I FOIL, and I get x to the second minus 9 equals 16. Move my 16 over. X squared equals 7. Now I square root, plus or minus the square root of 7. Since the original problem is given in log form, I'm required to check it. So I have to write the word check, and then I have to write down, sorry, my family keeps coming by me. Then I have to write down x equals the square root of 7. So that's going to be log base 2 of the square root of 7 plus 3 plus log base 2 of the square root of 7 minus 3, close it, equals 4. Leave the equals 4 alone. On the right-hand side, this is how you put this crazy thing in. So you're going to go log second x squared 7, close that off, that closed off the root is all, plus 3, close it off, divided by log 2, close it off, plus log second x squared 7, close it, minus 3, close it, divided by log 2, close it, enter. And I think I did something wrong. Let me do it again. Okay, so it's going to be log second x squared 7, close it, plus 3, close it, divided by log 2, close it, plus log second x squared 7, close it, minus 3, close it, divided by log 2, close it, enter. I got another error. I don't know what I'm doing wrong right there. Oh, that's weird. They got a different answer. Okay, let me check. Oh, I see what I did. I guess that's the beauty of checking. When you move your 9 over, it's actually a positive. So that gives you a 25. And then you square root, and that gives you x equals plus or minus 5. Okay, yay for checking. I did not plan that. I'm like, why is this not working? Okay, so I get x equals 5. When you check, always check from the original. So this is log base 2 of 5 plus 3 plus log base 2 of 5 minus 3 is equal to 4. Okay, right-hand side or left-hand side, go log 8, close it off, divided by log 2, close it off, plus log 5 minus 2, or 5 minus 3 is 2, close it off, divided by log 2, close it off, enter, and I got 4 equals 4. Now I'm going to go x equals negative 5. You have to show a nice check from the original problem. Have lots of people not doing that. So it looks like that. I can see that this is going to be an invalid solution. The reason it's an invalid solution is because I'm taking the log of a negative number. So I'm done. My answer is x equals 5. I can see on the answer sheet that it's giving you a 5 and a negative 5. That's a typo. It's not both because the negative 5 doesn't work out. Okay, here is 28. Okay, so here's your formula. Okay, what's the population size initially? It probably should say, and you know, what's the initial population? Oh, it does say initial. Initially, time is 0. So if you just go P equals 250 e to the 0.0365 times 0 plus 30. Well, I can do this in my head because 0 times 0.0365 is 0. E to the 0 is a 1. 1 times 250 is 250. 250 plus 30 is 280. So 250, and this is, I was going to say people, but it is bacteria. Okay, part B, what will the population be after 10 hours? So that's easy. You're just going to put in a 10 right there where you see your T. Okay, so grab your calculator and go 250 second ln 0.0365 parenthesis. Actually, I'm going to go times 10, close it, plus 30, hit enter, and I get 390. You're going to always round to the nearest whole, even if they don't tell you, on people and, you know, bacteria. Okay, question C. After how many hours will the population reach 3,000? Oh, pardon me, 1,000. So here's your formula, and that's where that 1,000 is going to go. So you have 1,000 equals 250 e to the 0.0365 t plus 30. Move your 30 over. So it's 250 e to the 0.0365 t is equal to 70. Because 1,000 minus 30 is 970. Then I'm going to divide by 250. When I divide by 250, I get a decent number. It ends. So 0.0365 t equals 3.88. And then I convert it. So it's log base e. So that's ln 3.88 equals 0.0365 t. To solve, you divide. So it's ln 3.88 divided by 0.0365. So then go ln 3.88, close it, divided by 0.0365, hit enter, and you get 37. And again, they don't tell you where to put, where to round, so I'm going to say 0.15 hours. Just so you know, you can store that in, and if you put it right here, you should get 1,000. Okay, here's 29. The car that is X years old follows this equation. X is the number of years old it is, and P of X is the price. So what is the original price of the car? That's when it was 0. So you would go P of 0 equals 15,000 times 0.9 to the 0 power. And when you put that in your calculator, you get $15,000. Part B, what will the price be after 10 years? That's just going to go in for X. So P of 10 is 15,000 times 0.9 to the 10th power. So 15,000, parenthesis, 0.9, close it, raise it to the 10th, hit enter, and it's $5,230. I'm just going to round it to nearest whole, okay? 30 you don't have to do, 31, 32, 33. So here we are on 34. Solve by substitution or elimination. I always use elimination whenever it's feasible because I think it's easier. Elimination is not an option on 34 because the x is squared in the second and not the first. Same thing with the y. So here's equation 1, here's equation 2. Solving equation number 2 for x or y would be horrible because those are squared. And so I'm going to solve equation 1 for y, which is way better than solving it for x. So it's going to look like that. Okay? And now I'm going to go x squared plus negative 3x minus 5 in parentheses squared equals 5. Now, that is a little ugly, but you guys are smart. You can deal with it. So if you write it twice and then FOIL, then I think you're going to be great. Negative 3x times negative 3x is positive 9x squared. Negative 3x times negative 5 is a positive 15x. Negative 5 times negative 3 is a positive 15x. Negative 5 times negative 5 is a positive 25 equals 5. Now I'm going to clean the whole thing up, move everything to the left. So I have 10x squared plus 30x. 5 comes over and becomes a negative, plus 20 equals 0. I'm going to take a 10 out of everything, and I'm left with x to the second plus 3x plus 2. That makes it much easier. This thing factors. So the 2 is going to go to a 2 and a 1. Signs are the same, they're both positive. That gives me nothing. That gives me x equals negative 1. That gives me x equals negative 2. So I'm going to come over here, x value of negative 1, x value of negative 2. If you solve by substitution, the easiest place is that solved equation. So y equals negative 3 times negative 1 minus 5. That's 3 minus 5, which is a negative 2. If x is a negative 2, it's a negative 3 times a negative 2 minus 5. That's 6 minus 5, which is 1, and that's it. And you can check those, store that in as A, store that in as B, plug it here, get a 5, plug it here, get a 5, do the same, or -5 and 5, do the same thing with the next one. You can totally check it. Okay, 35. What is the remainder? So it's x minus 1 divided into, notice there's no third, so you have to fill in a 0x to the third. Okay, what do I multiply by x to get 8x to the fourth? That's 8x to the third. Distribute, you get 8x to the fourth minus 8x to the third. Change your signs, those cancel. That gives me 8x to the third. Bring down the negative 2x a second. What do I multiply by x to get 8x to the third? That's 8x squared. Distribute, I get 8x to the second minus, 8x to the third minus 8x to the second. Change your signs, those cancel. I get 6x a second, bring down the 6x. What do I multiply by x to get 6x squared? That's 6x. Distribute 6x to the second minus 6x. Change my signs, those cancel. I get a 12x, bring down the 4. What do I multiply by x to get 12x? That's a 12. Distribute 12x minus 12. Change my signs, those cancel. I get an 8. Now, they asked what is the remainder? The remainder is 8. That's how you write it. If they asked you, which they did not, but if they asked you what is the quotient, that is the stuff at the top without the remainder. Like that, okay? So just be sure you read it. Didn't have to do 26, 27, 28, 29, or 39, and then 40. So I am on 41. True or false, log base 3 of 7 plus log base 3 of 9 is log base 3 of 16. So leave the log base 3 of 16 alone. Over here, when you squish, you multiply. 9 times 7 is 63. I can tell that that's false. Because if log base 3 of this is equal to log base 3 of that, those things have to be equal to each other. And 36 or 63 and 16 are not the same thing. Okay, 42. Evaluate this. So 7 raised to the 3 log base 7 of 2x. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 3 and I'm going to pull it up as an exponent, because you can do that when you have a log. And then I have 7 raised to the log base 7. So remember, when that happens, there's your answer right there. So it's in parentheses 2x to the third. 2 to the third is an 8. So your answer is 8x to the third. Okay, 43. Solve for x. So when I look at this, I see a base of 4 on the left and a base of 4 on the right, which is nice. So the 4th root of 4 is 4 to the 1/4. This is 4 to the 2 times x is 2x. If 4 to this equals 4 to that, those things must be equal. So 2x must be 1/4. I have to divide by 2. So if I were you, this is what I would do. I'd go parenthesis, 1 divided by 4, close it. Divided by 2, enter, and I get 0.125. It ends, it's fine. If you hit second PRB, enter, you get 1/8. So that's probably better, but I would think either one is fine. Okay, 44. Okay, so what I see is I see something very nice on the right, and I'm going to deal with the left. I also see ln, which is log base e, and then I see another e. So I think they're trying to get me to write it as log base e of e, which is going to be a 1. Okay, so this is ln of 1 over e to the 1/2. Then I'm going to take that e to the 1/2 up, and it's going to become a negative, like that. Then I'm going to put it in front. So I have negative 1/2. Log base e of e is negative 1/2. I could keep writing it as ln of e if I wanted to. It's the same thing. Log base e of e is a 1. 1 times a negative 1/2 is a negative 1/2. It's totally the same thing. So this is true. Okay. Question 45. How long would it take $20,000 to grow to $25,000 if it's compounded continuously at 2.5%. Okay, so it is CE to the KT, or PERT. I'll do PERT, it doesn't matter. I'll just do PE to the RT. Okay, so you want 25,000. You want to start with 20,000. E to the rate is 0.025 times t. I'm solving for t. It's stuck in the exponent. I can see that I'm going to have to divide or convert to get it out, but not yet. Divide by 20,000. So e to the 0.025 t is 20,000 divided by 25,000, which is 0.8. Now I convert it. So log base e of 0.8, that's ln 0.8, is 0.025 t. To solve for t, divide. So it's ln 0.8 divided by 0.025. So I'm going to go ln 0.8, close it off, divided by 0.025, hit enter, and I got a negative answer. I do not know why. Let me think of this. Oh, 25,000 divided by 20,000 is not 0.8. This should be 1.25. And then this is ln of 1.25. So do you see how I did that? And then I knew I was wrong because I have negative time. So then I go back and I'm like, what did I do wrong? So that's definitely a skill you guys need. So ln 1.25, close it off, divided by 0.025, hit enter, and I get t equals, I'm going to go 8.93, and time is always in years. And again, I can store that in, and I could put it here, and I could check my answer. Okay, that was 45. So the next one you had to do was 46. How much do you need to invest now? So the principal is what I'm looking for. To have $10,000 in 8 years if it's 3%, okay? And it's compounded annually. So your formula is right here, okay? So you want $10,000. You're looking for the principal. The rate is 0.03. Annual is 1. Raised to the 1 times t, which is 8. Okay, so 1 plus 0.03 times divided by 1. Put that in your calculator if you want. It's just 1.03. So you have p times 1.03 raised to the 8th is equal to 10,000. Okay, now look, you're trying to solve for p, and this right here is a constant, and it's just multiplied. So you're just going to divide by that pink stuff. So it's just 10,000 divided by 1.03 to the 8th. That's it. So if you go 10,000 divided by parenthesis 1.03, close it, raise it to the 8th, hit enter. It's $7,894, and I'm going to go to the nearest cent, 9 cents, and I'm done. Again, store that exact value in, put it right there in for P, and you should get 10,000. Okay, you didn't have to do 47, so here's 48. I am going to solve this using elimination, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this by a -3, because then I'll have a -3 over x and a +3 over x. So write down your top equation. Distribute the -3. You guys, the -3 doesn't get multiplied by any of the denominators. It's just the numerators. So that's -3 over x minus 15 over y equals -39 over 1. I don't have to write the over 1. X's cancel. That gives me a -17 over y is equal to -34. Put a 1 underneath and cross multiply. -34y equals -17. Divide, and I get y equals 1/2. So I'm going to come like that. Then I'm going to go in wherever I want, whatever looks the easiest, and put a 1/2 in for y. I'm going to do it right there. So I'm going to go 1 over x plus 5 over 1/2. I'm going to make it like that, equals 13. That 5 over 1/2, just go 5 divided by 0.5. It's 10. So it's just 1 over x plus 10 equals 13. Move your 10 over. 1 over x equals 3. Cross multiply, 3x equals 1. Divide, x equals 1/3. And again, you can store those in, plug it in there, make sure it works. Okay? All right, what is left? That's it. Okay, so that's it, guys. Thanks.